I joke with the guys, I might just as well go down to the corner and ask a guy, Vinny. So I'm better giving up my kneecaps.
Yeah. Sell a kidney.
Sell a
Anybody in the
kidney.
town?
And we're
Yeah.
doing a blood drive, but it's a legit blood drive.
Welcome to the Tao Talk podcast. I'm Denise, and I'm not here with Neil. Neil sprained his back, and he's laid up for now, but he should be back with us this Tuesday night for our live stream, which happens every Tuesday at 8 p.m. But in the meantime, I had the opportunity to sit down with Town of Wallkill Supervisor Frank DenDanto. In this conversation, Frank addresses the financial challenges facing the town, including concerns surrounding the cost of professional auditing. He also responds directly to some of the rumors circulating on social media, and he also shares with us his vision for the future of the town. Lastly, he addressed an interest in coming back on the show, maybe even on a more regular basis. So, after watching this interview, if you have any questions, concerns, or maybe you have another topic you'd like him to address, please leave that in the comments below. We'll have Frank on and we'll respond to all of your concerns. All right. But before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It goes a long way to helping us reach more people. And also click that bell so you get notified when new videos drop and when we do our live stream every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Without any further delay, let's get into it. So, guys, welcome to the show. Our supervisor, Town of Wallkill Supervisor, Frank DenDanto. Hey, Frank, how are you? Welcome.
Hey, Denise. I thank you. I'm very well. Thank you very much for having me on today. I really appreciate it. It looks like we have wonderful weather outside, so I
Yes.
am a little sad to be inside. I almost did this outside, but then I figured that we'd all be very distracted. So no, I'm happy to be on, and I'm excited to be talking to you today.
Awesome. First of all, I want to thank you guys in the police force for being out there to support us during No Kings on Route 211 in Middletown. We had a good sized crowd, but it was cold.
Oh, yes, it was. I was out there with you, and there was a very robust, loud crowd. I'm a little sad that it was cold because I think that might have hurt our numbers a little bit. But yeah, Town of Wallkill takes First Amendment very seriously, and they also take the safety of those individuals very seriously. And I understand that there was a lot of coordination between the chief of police and the coordinator of the event in terms of how to manage the safety aspect of it. There are things that we have to take into consideration now today that we didn't have to take into consideration, say, 6 months ago, when it
Yeah.
comes to exercising our First Amendment. So, uh, well, it was in some respects a little bit of a challenge with all the police cars in front of us. What I also thought was kind of interesting as an upside to it was there were a lot of flashing lights, so there was no way to miss the crowd.
Yes. Yeah, it was easy to find us. That's exactly,
Yeah,
because when we drove up, we were like, where are they? Oh, yeah, there's the flashing lights. That's where we go.
yeah,
So
exactly,
it was
exactly.
great. I think at most we might have had, I think we had like a couple of hundred people at its peak.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I think so. I think so. I think that's fair. And it was very orderly and there was a lot of support on the streets. I thought that was exciting to see. It's always sort of a little bit hit or miss, but the sentiment I think is changing nationally and definitely in the state of New York and I think in our community that
yes,
we're a little tired of the games that have been played here on the national front, and that what is happening nationally doesn't represent who we are as a people. And I think we are trying, and we will continue to try to be loud about that.
I agree. I agree. And
Yeah.
the people driving by, I mean, the amount of people that were just honking and cheering and waving at us, it was quite a bit. You occasionally got the grumpy Trumper who, sort of flipped the bird at us, but I think I could count that
Oh,
many
you saw
people
that
on
guy
my
too,
2
huh?
hands. Yeah, yeah, it was like one or it was just like a very few,
Yeah.
grumpy people that were, just, giving us the finger and stuff. Almost everyone that passed by, the horns were going. I even took a video. I was walking through the crowd and walked right into Don Salio, by the way, and took picture
Yeah.
with him. So I had to stop. I stopped my recording to talk to him, but as I was walking down, you could hear the horns in the recording going. So it was definitely a great day, and look forward to the next one because hopefully it'll be warmer and we'll get a better crowd.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Because I think they're looking to schedule it sometime in July or end of June. So we'll have it. We'll have to tempt the weather gods appropriately. I mean, it could be warmer, but it might be raining. But at least it'll be warmer. So
Yes, I've
there
been
is
out
that.
there in the
Yes.
rain. I've been
Yes.
out there in
And
the rain, marched through the city in the rain, last year, and it's fine. It's
Yeah,
absolutely fine.
I agree. I agree. And again, like I said, I think it's really important that we continue to do this. And so I was a little sad that we're waiting until July, but they got to organize when they can organize. And so I'm happy to have the warmer weather for sure.
Excellent. So, wanted to, this is the first chance we've had to get you on here since you took over the role of supervisor on January 1st. Congratulations, by the way. It's a
Thank,
little overdue, but congratulations.
thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be back.
I know that you sort of hit the ground running with one of the biggest issues that has faced the community and that we've talked about for a number of years now, which is issues with our finances. And I was just wondering what the status is of your investigation. Where are we, and where are we going?
Well, we did hit the ground running. That was a really big, obviously one of the biggest topics that I campaigned on, and is probably the biggest problem that the town faces right now. And what I can tell you in terms of where we are sitting is that internally we have begun to dig through the piles of correspondence and transactions that exist on the town's server. So that process is underway. I think you probably are aware or discussed this idea of a forensic audit. We have a forensic audit firm now attached to us. So that is underway, and they are involved in going through those transactions on the server. And it's a slow go because there's a lot of stuff to dig through. But also internally, we have identified some policies and procedures at the accounting department's level that we have implemented immediately that will also offset some of the confusion and segregate some of the monies that have up until recently been commingled. So yeah, we're actually really moving with great intention and a lot of speed to get to the bottom of it. What I can say is that I think we've pretty much locked down where that number is. I know that I've talked about a number between $4 million and $7 million in terms of where the hole is currently. What I can say definitively at this point is in 2022, the town had $11 million. And in January, I believe 7th or 12th, that second week of January, the town had not enough money to pay its payroll. And that included,
Wow.
yeah. So that is real. That's not me, and that's not conjecture, and that's not hyperbolic. That's a real thing. The town comptroller and the deputy comptroller came to find me at town hall in the middle of the day. I was down at planning, having conversations about some directions that we're going to talk about maybe a little bit later there. And they said, we need to tell you that we don't have enough money for payroll. And I said, what do you mean you don't have enough money for payroll? What are you talking about?
And
uh, Hi,
this is
week
your
two,
second week. This is your
second
second week
week.
on the job.
Yeah. Second week on the
So,
job. So we did a real pivot and scramble inside of 48 hours. We identified what savings were left in the town. There was roughly around $375,000 in an annuity that was sitting in the town that the town had put in. That would have constituted the entire fund balance at the time. And we transferred that and borrowed against the 26 property taxes that were being taken into the town at that time as well. So basically 2026's income paid. We took a loan from that to make payroll through January and get us over the hump to closing, which was Groundhog's Day, where the town is, for the most part, 90% flush with the property taxes that it takes in for the year. So that we got over the line, but not without a lot of sidestepping. That said, the total revenues for the town roughly were somewhere around 29.5 million. Our current operating budget for 26 is $32 million roughly. So we're still overdrawn. And
Yeah.
what we managed to discover in that, since if you count back from 2022 to now, the town blew through that $7 million that I was talking about. That's real. They actually blew through that to get us to practically zero, and to the place where we have to scramble to find payroll. And so the gap in that is, whether or not they got there, how we got to not having a fund balance is part of that forensics discussion. But the bigger question is what to do with the gap that is existing in the 2026 budget, which the town knowingly at the time drew down on what they thought they had in terms of a fund balance, which was $2 million. So if you take that $2 million, well, it's actually a little bit more than $2 million. It's $3 million and change. But if you take that amount of money alone, that it's roughly the $4 million that we're talking about total, because you
Wow.
have to factor in the money that we borrowed from 2026 to make payroll, which was almost $1 million. So, yeah, $4 million looks to me like the number that we need to somehow navigate to get through 2026.
And break even.
So, yeah, just to break even, just to get through the year. So that's a kind of a big lift. $4 million is not a drop in the bucket in terms of operating costs. When you think that your average payroll is like $350 to $450,000, and that's without overtime. So, which is something that we can't really factor in. We
Right.
can guess, but everything that I've seen in the budget right now is that they've been very judicious in factoring in any extra expenses. So I don't really know what to say other than if if all things are equal, we're still upside down by $4 million. And if the summer goes the way that I think it's going to go, which is we have to add extra security for outside projects at Orange County Speedway, and for perhaps some tournaments at the Little League fields or at the soccer fields, then and that's predicated on the fact that the country's in a kind of unique spot, and we have to take threats a little bit more seriously, as we were just talking
Yeah.
about with the police cars, acting
For
as
no
a
kings.
barrier, so that if somebody didn't, decided to use their vehicle as a weapon, which is a real thing because we've seen it happen in the city.
Yes.
Uh, we have to be very vigilant about soft targets like that. And the chief is, and so kudos to those guys. They're really on their A game in that respect. But that's all added. Like, all those police officers weren't scheduled to work, so they were on all overtime. All those cars out of service and running so that their lights are running. That's all fueled at $4 a gallon because the town pays the same as everybody else. Um,
Exactly. Yep.
yeah, so that's what we're up against, and so it looks like $4 million. That's the hang up. Yeah.
So that's concerning,
Yes.
regarding, this budget deficit. What are ways that we can, let's say, cover that revenue? Are there cuts that we can make, or are there other things we can do to earn revenue to
That's a
cover that
yeah.
shortfall?
Great question, and a question again. Part of the hit the ground running component is that immediately we had to identify the problem, which I think that we have gotten to. Right, we had to name where the issue is, and of course we can go back and forth of how we got here, but that's a different day. We know that we're here, so this is the problem we have. We know how we got here in terms of obviously the last boards were um, you know for lack of a better term, negligent in their fiduciary responsibilities. They knew what they were up against. They heard it a lot of times for many years, certainly for the since 2021. And I can say that um, for lack of a better excuse, they were the guys who were driving the boat, and they ran that boat directly into the rocks. So the last part of it is to come up with a plan and a solution to close that gap. And so what I think what we're looking at right now is three options that are on the table that my team and specifically I have worked very hard to put together. And the first of which is an option that has sadly been used in the past in Orange County and is currently on the table for other municipalities, not just the town of Wallkill, and that is to ask the state for one-time relief to close that gap as a line item on the budget for 2027. And if the state sees fit to do that, then that gap gets closed immediately.
Okay.
That's option number one, and that option is already out of the gate. We've already made it the ask to Assemblywoman Paula Kay and to Senator Skoufis. I've had long conversations with both of them about the history, about the issues that the town is surrounding, and I sent them a 22-page letter,
Real
complete with
wow.
bar charts and graphs. Yeah, I mean, there was a little. Not going to lie, I honestly felt like I was back in grad school. Like I was up late at night typing and then retyping and then typing again, and using all of the electronic components that I have, at my fingertips to try to get that paper, so lack of a better term, that 22-page paper, to be as clean and concise as I could possibly make it, to make sure that the messaging was clear. We're in this hole because of, our own mismanagement, and we are working very hard to solve that mismanagement. But the fact of the matter is that we're going to fall short, and anything that falls short is going to hurt the residents of the town of Wallkill. So,
Yes.
um, and they were very helpful in helping me understand some of the vocabulary that will resonate with the rest of the floor, because this is not just their decision. They're not just arbitrarily deciding. This goes in front of the entire Assembly and Senate. So
Okay.
it has to be included. Now, what I can tell you is that that particular ask is also, in the wheelhouse of other municipalities, at least one other municipality in Orange County that is making the same request, because their budgets and budget management has been as poor as ours. And again, general operating costs are going through the roof. As I had mentioned, the $4 of gas, and if you're running police cars or plow trucks or
Yeah.
anything else, yeah, that really takes a bite out of what you're doing. So we're hopeful because of what both the Assemblywoman and the Senator has said, that the state is very serious about making sure that municipalities survive this economic downturn, and specifically
Yes.
survive um, poor judgment specific to management of their assets. So that is our plan A. But I don't ever operate with just a plan A, ever.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't.
I have a few ground. No, absolutely not. I have a few ground rules that I've been raised with. One of them is never just have a plan A, always have a plan C. And the second one that I will reference quite a bit is what would a judge say? Um, and that comes from my entrepreneurial days, because I did a lot of high end construction, and sometimes those conversations don't always see eye to eye, and sometimes you have to have an arbitrator help find what middle looks like.
Yes.
And so I had an attorney friend of mine, and my father actually, who worked in the courts, used to always say, "What will a judge say?" Depending on what you do. So, are your actions in line with what a judge might say? So, using those tools, I came up with a plan B, which is, if the state does not allow us the line item, then what we would do is petition the state for bonding. And quite literally, that means that the state would act as our financial agency, and then they would cover they would act as a stopgap, cover our costs, and we would borrow from them. Because, as I'm sure you're aware, the past board's actions got us to having no bond rating. So, I
Yes,
mean,
that's a big
who's
one,
ever heard
yes.
of that, really? I mean, who's ever heard of a municipality not having a bond rating? Like, how bad does it have to be that you
That's a new
go from
one.
AAA or AA all the way to having no bond rating at all,
I
right? None.
I know. Well, that's and that's part of the reason why, we're sort of in this hole that we're
Yeah,
in.
it's true. And I'm sure you've probably heard too, the other side go, prove it, prove it, prove that there's a problem, prove that there's money missing, prove it. And I say, well, if not making payroll isn't proof enough, we don't have a bond rating. How do you get there? Like, how much more proof do you need?
And the fact that it wasn't revealed for a year and a half. We didn't find this until we were well into the campaign. I mean, it was like a month or 2 before election
Yeah.
day that suddenly this came out. It was like, "What? This has been going on for a year and a half."
Yeah, a year
Uh,
and a half. It's been going on for 4 years because for every year that they've received their financials, every year their auditing agency gives them a list of material weaknesses, and every year they ignore it. Every single year from 21 on. I mean, that was one of the things in my first term that I rang the alarm about that got me into, so much hot water was because I turned on the light and and the cockroaches went scurrying. Um, to this financial disaster. I mean, I actually said it. It's quoted in the Times Herald Record. There's a 4 alarm fire, and I think Mr. Coyne said no, there wasn't. And I think at that time Ralph Carr said to me, "Prove it to me, prove it." So, and I don't know how much more proof you could possibly want.
Well, I think
So,
it's actually a very interesting thing that you bring up Ralph Carr because he was initially campaigning that there was nothing wrong until it was revealed that there was something wrong, particularly when the bond rating issue came out and made news. Then all of a sudden, yes, we don't have a bond rating, but you don't have anything to worry about. Yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah,
we do.
you don't need that. You don't need that. Well, before he got to that place, he got, well, we're going to talk about the semantics of vocabulary. It's not, it's not that there's money missing. It's just that there's money not counted yet. And I'm like,
So that's what our books.
okay,
We can't count and do our books, right? Our books are
right,
a mess.
right. Exactly. So it becomes laughable because everybody and their brother has a checkbook and has got to balance their checkbook. They understand how that works. So I don't know what to say about any of that except for here we are. And
Here we
here we are. And so that we have a plan A, we have this plan B, which is to ask the state if plan A doesn't work, we ask the state to bond us that, and we borrow from the state. That they have done in the past. Actually, Washingtonville, again, another community in the Orange County area, um, it was in a financial situation where they had to do that. The state did actually do that, and that was probably a little bit easier lift because it doesn't require an entire sit down with the budget. It doesn't become part of the budget line item. It becomes a special resolution or a special law that's passed. Uh, and then, of course, the third option, and there is a third option. The third option I won't really go into a lot of detail on because in my opinion, it's a nuclear option. Um, and really what it amounts to is, uh, you know, calling out in an active way, uh, those individuals who are responsible from a fiduciary place, both at the state level and at the local level, and then making really, really hard choices about how to operate the town. And that's the I the reason that's the third nuclear option is because the town residents hurt there, right? Because that means a reduction in services, a reduction in staffing, a reduction in overall output, and then an increased tax margin. And that's not a thing that I really want to focus on at this point. I certainly am. I'm aware of what those impacts would be and what those percentages would be, and we did all the math to figure out how to get over that $4 million hump if that
yeah.
were the case. But we don't. We're not focused on that. We're focused on A and B because A and B have probably the most promise, and not for nothing, A and B both have immediate resolution, right? If the
Yes.
state decides to help us in either way, then the town is good, and we're not looking at catastrophic kind of interruptions in services. So
Very good.
Yeah, so the three ways to get out of this mess. Two ways that are really, really positive. One way that is way positive and has a lot of traction. So we're feeling good about the solution to get us to 27. And what I will tell you is all of these exercises have been, tirelessly brought on by myself and the staff to dive back into the 27 budget because clearly the town is operating outside its means, right? And so this comes back to
Yes.
something everybody understands. You only make if you're making $60,000 a year and it's only you, you're probably not living in a $500,000 house by
Good
yourself,
point. Yeah. Good
and
point.
or going out every weekend. You have sometimes you have to make some choices that are uncomfortable and hard because that's the situation that you're in. So we're looking at 27 right now, very realistically, in an effort to try to figure out how to get to what our fixed income line is, and that's really important because the other side has already started to make noise about projected income and
Yes.
why projected income matters in this conversation. So if it's okay, I'll just take 2 seconds and talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Because we're going
All
to get
right.
into that anyway. So,
All right. So projected income is basically income lines that you don't really know what they're ultimately going to pay out on. These are your sales tax income lines, the hotel tax income lines, um, income lines based off court revenues that we get. So these things aren't fixed. We can project them historically based on how we've performed over a set number of years. The town generally looks back about 4 years, and we can project forward conservatively what that income line might possibly be. That said, they are exactly that. They're projected income lines. You don't have that money yet. You will get that
right.
money by the end of the year, but you don't have that money yet.
And
In
it's a
a
projection,
perfect
not a guarantee.
That is also true. So maybe I'll get $1 million, maybe I'll get 1.2 million. I don't know. Maybe I don't get $1 million because the world economy is in a dark spot. The town's economy is affected by the state's economy. If there's a downturn in people traveling because they don't feel safe, um,
Yeah.
or it's difficult to get through the airport, or the cost of getting in your car and driving anywhere is through the roof, then maybe the hotel tax doesn't pull in $1 million. Maybe the state sales tax is off by 10-15%, like we saw at COVID, where it dropped by nearly 30%.
Yeah.
So all of these things can affect that number, and you can't really guess on that number in terms of your operating because you might get less. Maybe you get more, but it's not really likely in this particular fiscal year, given where we are right now and what we've experienced over the last 18 months. But what I
Yeah.
will say is, worse still, you don't get that until the end of the year. Like it comes in dribs and drabs, and in some instances it comes in a big bulk, but it comes in at the end of the year. So, so what do you do? Well, in a perfect world, in a regular world, you'd have your fund balance, and you'd draw off your fund balance, and you'd backfill your fund balance when that money came in. We don't have a fund balance, so
Wow.
I can't. Yeah, I can't draw off of that. There's no ability to backfill anything because I'm at zero or near zero. Like it might just as well be zero because I have no flexibility. So, so projected income doesn't help my bottom line.
Yeah.
It might help me at the end of the year, but it doesn't help my bottom line because I can't front load anything. This also goes for grant writing too, Denise. I don't know if you knew this, and maybe your listeners don't know this, but when the town gets grants, because I've heard this too, people are like, "Oh, just go write a grant." Yeah, that's great, except for I have to pay up front. The money comes
Yes.
to me. I have to do the thing that I said I was going to do, and then I got to give whoever the grant supplier is a, a finished document saying I spent this much money, and then they give me that money back. But I got to do the thing first. And how do I do the thing if I have no money to do the thing? So we're like, hey, you got a grant for $2 million. That's great. I don't have $2 million to spend on sidewalks. So much for the grant for sidewalks. Not having a fund balance is a real problem. Not having a fund balance and not having a credit rating is a huge problem. I can't even
Yes.
borrow. Like, you're like, I get the
Oh,
grant for $2
wow.
million. I can't even borrow that money because the best I'm looking at is like 18%, 15% on a municipal bond.
Ow, that's
Yeah,
high.
it's
Holy shit.
crazy. I joke with the guys. I might just well go down to the corner and ask a guy, Vinny. Swear, I'm better giving up my kneecaps.
Yeah. Sell a kidney.
Sell a
Anybody in the
kidney.
ta
And we're
yeah.
doing a blood drive, but it's a legit blood drive. We're
Yeah, so
selling our plasma.
on the plasma. Oh, boy. So
So
there's
that's where we're at.
oh, wow. So, and to that point, there's been a rumor going around here that I guess a few years ago, New York State was investigating our finances because of the shit show we were in.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and the rumor is that they've dropped the investigation because they found nothing wrong.
Yeah, that is blatantly wrong, and I would say borderline misinformation, possibly outright lie. They did not drop the investigation. They did find lots of things wrong. There is an investigation ongoing. There obviously were some concerns because they found such a big problem that one of their own people actually was arrested and now pled guilty to stealing 405, I think is the number. I've heard up to 450, but it looks like 405 is probably the real number. $405,000, which got flagged at the bank. So here's the thing that's really interesting about that. The town would have never known. What actually tipped off the town was the bank. I suspect that there was an expectation that the bank wouldn't have flagged that, and that's maybe for a different kind of conversation
Yes,
because
yes.
but
I know
but
what
the
you're saying.
the bank did do that, and so that individual got caught, and turned out that he was an employee of the New York State Comptroller's office. That is true. They contend that he had never done that before. And I can't really speak to that. I will tell you my anecdotally that growing up, known a lot of different people in my life, and I have never heard a story where a thief starts out at $400,000. Normally, they work their way up to that. So I will say that about this individual. Bold move on his part, but
Yeah.
what what I will also say is that while it stopped the ongoing investigation to move any forward because of his involvement, it did not stop the investigation. The audits will continue. They absolutely, in fact, I had a meeting with the New York State Comptroller's office about 2 weeks ago, directly speaking to this issue. They are coming back to town. They will pick up where they left off. They might have to expand the investigation because of the material weaknesses that they found that put their own individual in a place where he thought he could get away with that. Because what's it say
Yeah.
when a New York State comptroller who's investigating you for open weaknesses that feels so confident that they can take $400,000?
Yeah,
Like, what does that
and
say about your book safety?
exactly. I mean, and from what I understand, that was over a period of like a year and a half or 2 years. So he was just sort of taking, and nobody was picking it up.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's real. And what I said when I said when the retort of well, he took $400,000, you don't take that much money, and I actually said this to someone on the other side of this discussion, on the opposite side of the political aisle. They said, well, no, no, he did take smaller amounts. He took like $150,000 increments. And I was like, $150,000. I can see where that's substantially smaller. Yes, I suppose
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is small.
Holy shit! And nobody noticed
So,
that.
I
Nobody
mean, that's the
questioned that.
argument. Yeah, that's the argument is that somehow that's a smaller amount. And I think really what's frustrating to me in general is that statements like that, arguing points like that, like, oh, the investigation is over. No way is the investigation. How would it possibly be over? That they didn't find anything wrong. They found a $400,000 hole. Like,
Yes,
that's ludicrous to me. That's ludicrous. That would
yes.
even that would even sound rational to somebody when they say it out loud. But I mean, I guess it did because, as you said, it's floating around as in part of the rumor mill. So,
Yes, and well,
um,
they want you to I hate to use the word, but I feel like we're being gaslighted when they do that.
oh, I think that's absolutely accurate. It's been a political tactic for a very long time, sadly. But if I can get you to question your reality, then and you actually take the bait, then your reality becomes whatever I say it is. And I think it flies in the face of anybody who's got common sense. I joked about this in the freezing cold to Don and a couple other folks that were standing next to. Is like, they think that if they tell us the sky is pink with purple polka dots, that somehow we're just going to not see the blue. And you know,
Yeah.
my circle of folks didn't get to where we are at the ripe old age of our mid 50s, relying on that. That was not how we were brought up. So um, we're gonna, I think we're gonna cry foul, and we're gonna call a spade, and we're gonna say it out loud, and that dovetails with the Snow Kings thing, because I think the thing that's frustrating for those of us who are angry enough to get out in the cold and scream on a Saturday afternoon and in the middle of March is, don't tell us that you're doing good for us when we can clearly see that you're not. It's that simple. It's that
Yes.
simple.
Yeah.
The same holds true for the town. Don't tell me that you're safeguarding our money, or that you have our best interests in mind, or better yet, and here's the thing, Denise, that you somehow are competent as a party to govern, given the outcomes over the past 6 years.
Yeah.
Full stop. Right? I mean, come
I
on.
agree.
So, I ultimately think that that's what it comes down to. But we'll see where this all lands. I mean, this non-existent investigation, it will continue on, and I suspect that that will dovetail very nicely, I might add, with the forensic audit. And I suspect that we'll find where the holes are. That we'll get. Here's the thing: if they were not smart enough to realize that the bank would flag the money transaction, then they're not smart enough to close all the gaps and leave all the fingerprints behind. So,
That's a good point. Yes. To that point, to these audits now, when you're talking audits, you're talking your own internal audits as well. You said you connected with a firm that's conducting these audits. Uh,
yes,
okay, so to that point, I'm going by the rumors that the rumor mill that is just
yeah, yeah,
churning, and they're talking that you've spent $1 million on audits. What do you?
yeah. That's
What's
awesome.
you?
So you did hear me say that the town has 350. Well, we have no cash, but we had no money. Like, I have the operating money that was budgeted for 26. That's what I'm legally obligated to spend, and that's what I have to spend. What I will tell you is that there is money for auditing currently in the budget. That does actually exist. There are line items for individuals who are outside consultants. Those line items are robust, to the tune of somewhere around, well, actually, if you combine them all, they're well over $700,000 in terms of consulting fees that we've been paying outside of our existing budget as professional consulting fees that have been budgeted for 26. So that money exists there. I'm not spending anything that isn't already earmarked. It's already earmarked. It just so happens that I won't need the other consulting services because I will have this consulting service solve the problem.
Okay,
So that's the reality there. We didn't spend $1 million. We didn't spend anything more than what we budgeted. We didn't spend anything more than what the last board has already budgeted. Not that's not real at all. What I can say is that the current budget probably will be reallocated so that the individuals who won't be with us because we won't need their services anymore, that money will probably go to this investigation. But
okay.
again, it's already been voted on. It's part of the existing 2026 budget already. So there has been no additional $1 million spent at all.
Thank you. So I'm just gonna clarify what you're saying. The budget that you're utilizing to pay for these audits is coming from the budget that the previous board voted on.
Absolutely correct,
Okay.
100%.
Okay, good. Thank you. Um, and then of course, there's a question about hours, working hours. People have what is going
Yes.
on? I mean, they're fighting. What is going on with these
Oh,
people?
because we're so concerned. We're so concerned with, first of all, we have nothing to grab onto, right? I mean, what can they
Good
say?
point.
The other side has driven the boat. I used this analogy earlier. They drove the boat directly into the rocks. The boat is
Yes.
actively sinking, and they're going to quip about the color of the life preserver that's getting tossed. Like they're not going to use that life preserver. Um, okay, here's what I'm going to tell you. I've heard that people are concerned that I'm not in town hall. I'm in town hall pretty much daily. They're concerned that I'm not in town hall for walk-ins. I can tell you that in my first term of 2 years, I had very few walk-ins, and those walk-ins that I did have.
Oh, I think you froze. Uh, hang on.
Here's what I can tell you. The reality is that I've been in the office once before. I know what the office requires in terms of time in the actual physical office of the supervisor. 80% of my time during my first term, I was out and about making meetings on site, either down at the county, up at the state, in other municipalities, all over the place, at building sites, all over the place. Um, the reality is that I'm in town hall daily, if not more than once a day, and that those hours that I have right now are more in line with the constituents that have uh, regular jobs that can't get into town hall during business hours because they work for a living. I'm sure you know that a good chunk of our community is bedroom community to the city of New York. A lot of those folks are working between the hours of 7 and 3:30, 4:30. So it's better and easier to make meetings at earlier and later in the day. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm available to the town whenever the town needs me. I do meetings in the middle of the day all the time. I do remote meetings in the middle of the day, face-to-face meetings in the middle of the day. I was at a meeting yesterday or Friday at 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and then 4:30, and then a 6:30 meeting afterwards. I work 7 days a week, and I'm doing everything I can to, be as available as I possibly can. But will say that the condition of the town that I received was such that it requires a lot of hands-on work from an administrative place that requires, as I mentioned, writing 22-page term papers and trying to resolve all the budgeting that was done for 26 during the 25 year. So the short of it is that I am 110% available. Those people who can't get a hold of me aren't really trying. That's the bottom line.
That makes
Yeah, I'm
sense.
around. I'm around for sure. Um, and I will say that anybody who needs to get a hold of me, all they need to do is speak to my assistant who works in the office. She's there during business hours specifically to make sure that I'm going to be available for walk-ins. If there's a walk-in that needs to happen, I'll come back. I do currently have a day gig, but I make myself available to be in town hall for face-to-face when it's absolutely necessary for me to be in town hall. So yeah, just make an appointment and you'll get to me. I'll
Hey,
call you right up.
can you just give your assistant's name and contact info so people can reach out?
Sure. The contact, you're just going to call town hall, call the supervisor's office. And her name is Luce. You can
Loose.
either speak to her or Katie, Luz, Luce, or Katie. And either one of those two people will put you on my schedule. And once you're on my schedule, we'll touch base. And I generally have about a 24-hour turnaround time. So if it's a real hot emergency, I can call you that day. If you walk in and you're like, I need to talk to you, I need to talk to the supervisor right now, I'll call you back and I'll get a hold of you. Either I'll come to you directly inside of 30 minutes or I'll call you back inside of three, one of the two, but I am eminently reachable.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
There you go. Um, so what can you say now? Now we're heading into an election season already. We just did this, and now we're doing it
Yeah.
again. What can you say to the public? Why they should vote you back in again?
Well, so that question is both, uh, multifaceted and a little bit complicated. Here's what I'm going to say about voting me back in. I would hope you vote me back in for all the reasons that you voted me into office the first time. The situation hasn't really changed much, and the whole exercise for voting me in wasn't just I'm going to get to the bottom of where the missing money is. It's I'm going to fix the problem. But the reality is, fixing the problem isn't a one-term fix. It's impossible for it to be a one-term fix. As we discovered in week two, the town is in way
Yes.
worse situations than anybody would like to have had admitted back in November of 25. And the reality is that any kind of fix has got to be a multi-year fix. And so to change course and leadership midstream would be, to say catastrophic isn't an understatement. It could quite literally undo anything that we've already started out with in terms of solving the 26 budget, or in terms of figuring out how to deal with 27. Like, if the talking point is somehow we have plenty of money and $33 million is perfectly okay to spend, even though we're working on with projected income lines, uh, that's an individual who doesn't understand how the town works, doesn't understand what it is to work on a fixed with a fixed income line. Like, so I don't know what to say other than the exercise is a multi-year exercise. Generally, the term is a multi-year term, and this it is complicating that, right? There's no world
Right.
where this can get fixed inside of 12 months. And honestly, it doesn't get fixed inside of 12 months because for at least 4 or 6 of those 12 months, we're in an election cycle. So instead of, working with town members and working with members and working with state electeds to try to solve the problem, I'm out knocking on doors trying to tell people I'm solving the problem. So I can either tell people I'm solving the problem or I can solve the problem, one of the two things. But my hope is that what I will be able to do is communicate that in a way where I can do both. And since I do have this ability to multitask, and it has been successful, I'm, knock on wood, I'm feeling pretty confident that we've been in a pretty decent place where I have been able to really step up into solving these problems in the first 90 days and getting the ball rolling so that we've identified where the issues are, identified solutions to these issues, and now we're executing on the implementation. To pull the rug out from under that discussion right now would be really a bad move, and I think that anybody
Yeah.
who understands finances would say the same thing. So I'm feeling pretty good about that part of this discussion. But if you're asking me if I like that we're back in an election cycle, no, 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 no.
No,
I,
I
I, I
it's
think I
exhausting.
speak for
It's
everybody
it's
when I say
exhausting to be here in election
yes.
cycle again.
But you know what I will say about that? Just there again, I'm really about looking at silver linings, and I do this sometimes to my own discredit because the world could be literally on fire, and I'd be like, oh, but look how warm we are. Um, uh, I'm just saying, we don't have to worry about paying for oil because it's so toasty.
Oh,
Um, yeah. Anyway, a little bit of a macabre humor. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think that the reality is though, and we saw this play out in real time last year. The more you're at the doors, the more the constituents know, and the more they know, the more they're informed, the more they understand that when they hear stuff from the rumor mill, that it's just stuff from the rumor mill. Like they understand it because there's no world where you could go with a $4 million deficit and just fix it and then be out of office inside of 12 months. That's just
yeah.
unheard of. Yeah.
No,
So I,
I think the thing to remind the audience here, and regardless of where you are partisan wise, is that we've known that this problem has been around for years, and it's taken years to get to this point. I can't imagine it's going to be fixed in a matter of months. It's going to take. I agree. It's going to take years to straighten out so that it doesn't happen again. Like, policies and procedures need to put in place to protect the budget so that we don't have whatever is going on now to lead us to this
you're
this hole
you're
we're in.
absolutely yeah, you're absolutely right. These things do take time. Municipalities move slower than regular business. That's a frustration from my end because I come from the private sector, and have been in the private sector for so long where if I'm in a hiring situation, I just go out and grab, most qualified individual as quickly as I can wherever my budget line is. In a municipality, if I'm shorthanded in the assessor's office or I'm shorthanded in the accounting office, I have to go to a list and I have to wait for that list to be vetted. And that list has a bracketed income line. And I can't, like, there's no world where I can go outside of that income line in terms of greasing the wheels to get an employee to join the team. So, just staffing alone can take months. There's no quick fix for that. So if you're in a situation where you have underqualified or unqualified individuals sitting in positions where they probably shouldn't be, moving them out of the way and again, in the private sector is simple and can be done in a matter of days. In the public sector, takes a long time. So
Yeah.
all of these moves, everything that we do is exaggerated in terms of time, and none of that fits inside of 12 months.
Yeah. Very good. Well, I think this has been great. I think this is very important information for the people of Town of Wallkill to be aware of. I really appreciate you talking
Oh,
to
thank
us.
you.
Do you have any final thoughts, or is there do you have like an email or a social media presence that people can also reach out that way besides contacting you in the town?
Sure. Aside from contacting me in the town, I am on social media. I do have a campaign presence on social media. It's Frank for Supervisor, Frank the number four, and then the word Supervisor. You can find me online there. I have a YouTube page and I have a TikTok page, which I'm just now getting savvy to. I'm taking a lesson from you and our friend Neil. I was encouraged to perhaps maybe start talking about these things in real time. We're also working very hard. I do these teas every couple of months, every, I think, 3 or 4 weeks.
Yes, we
Uh,
didn't even talk about the spill the tea events that you've done a
yeah,
couple of them.
I've done a few, and we're going to do them every month moving forward. They will volley back and forth between weekend days and then after hours on weekdays, so that we can get to anybody who might be, interested in coming but can't make it because they're working or have some other conflict. But they've been really successful. We've had about 40, 30, 40, 50 people maybe in the room, and it is an open dialogue. Like, I'm not just out, you know, on the stump, so to speak, just telling my tale. There's a back and forth. I do engage with the constituents that show up and ask them real questions. Like, one of the things that I campaigned on was engaging in the public. We're working really hard on trying to upgrade the as cost effectively as we can, which slows stuff down sometimes. But to get this survey monkey thing active on our website, on the town website, so that we, the town board, can put out literally um, notices that the town can chime in on, and maybe poll on in an unofficial poll, like, say, for instance, the idea of warehouses and whether or not the
Yes.
moratorium should be lifted or not lifted, or how we should change the master plan in respect to warehousing. These are things that I think, you know five guys in a room might be smart enough to understand the nuances with that, but I'm not always certain that five guys in a room hear everybody's voice. And wouldn't it be nice to have an opportunity to have your voice heard, even if it's the same voice as your neighbors? If I get 30 of those voices as opposed to two voices on the other side, then I have a poll that I can work from, right? And then I can say, from a
Good point.
democratic
Yeah.
place, the town has decided. Like, not the town fathers, and this is another
Yeah.
thing, I hate that term. The town fathers, as though somehow, like, we are, you know, have all this wisdom. Uh, it-
The
I
overlords
mean,
of the town.
yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, we're as savvy as anybody else. The one thing I will say is that maybe we understand the working mechanisms a little bit better, but that's only because of proximity. That's only because we see it on a daily basis. But the reality is that my yard doesn't necessarily butt up to the same things that your yard is going to butt up to. You might have different opinions than my opinions on this, and we should share those opinions and find consensus. And that's the democratic process. I mean, that's the thing that we're out on No King Day saying. we want to defend. We want to defend the constitutional right to have an opinion and have that opinion heard, right?
Yes. Yes.
Good.
Yes. Thank you.
So that's it. So we're working really hard to get the Survey Monkey thing up, but in the meantime, we're doing these teas, and you can come to these teas, and I'll ask questions like, where do you see the town in 40 years? Like, I think that we're at this great precipice, not a precipice, I take that back. Crossroads, better word.
Better word.
Crossroads, yeah, crossroads where we have got to decide what the character of the town is. Like, we're going to decide whether it continues to be a bedroom community of homes, and we focus on what those services and supports are for homes as a bedroom community to the metropolitan area, not unlike Ramsey or
Right.
Briarcliff or one of those areas. Or are we a manufacturing hub where what we are focusing on is keeping tax rates low and offsetting those tax rates by ratables, commercial build out ratables that are manufacturing based or warehouse based or commercially driven, so that our overall tax property rate is lower. And what we do now today and how we set the town up today will drive that discussion. And I think everyone in this town has a right to be heard in that discussion because it's going to directly affect their taxes
Yes.
directly and
Yes,
the
it will.
services that they get. Right. So do you want to be Secaucus or do you want to be Ramsey? That's
There
the
you go.
question.
Good question.
So, and I think that, everyone should have a voice. And like I said, No King's Day was about that. It's about making sure that your constitutional right is heard and that you can have a voice. And so that's what those teas are all about. It's about those dialogues. It's also about hearing from me firsthand rather than the rumor mill what actually is happening in the world,
Yes.
according
Yes.
to the town.
Well, when
We
is
got great things happening.
yes. When is the next Spill the Tea event? We can let our
Coming up on the
audience know.
12th. Yeah, that's I think on the 12th. I think that's right. Um, and I believe it's in the evening this time. And
Yeah, it's a weekday.
yeah, yeah. So
It is.
if you're not doing anything after work, come by after dinner. We'll be quick. It's we'll call it an evening tea, if you will. We'll have a lot of chamomile out, and we'll talk a little bit about where the town is going. Some of the stuff that we're doing at the town, these partnerships. Like when I first got to the town, I was told by a number of people, most of the developers in town for sure, but also from other municipal leaders, the town was closed for business. And what I am very happy to say is that is so not true. I heard from Connor Ecker, who does the partnership. He said point blank to me, and so too Steve Newhouse, the town is absolutely open for business. We're doing wonderful things. We got big plans for the Pyramid property. We were talking a little bit about, you've heard me probably say, we're talking a little bit about a convention center and how to partner with Pyramid and the state with transit oriented housing to do a development of that property that makes sense for everybody, including Pyramid owners, including those guys. And everybody's at the table, like they're eager to be at the table.
Oh,
Having a
wow.
robust conversation about what's happening at the fairgrounds. I've changed, I guess, to some degree, changed course with the direction that the fairgrounds was looking to do because Mr. Gerda, who owns the fairgrounds, is interested. He's ready to be done with managing that property. He is in contract with Crow Holdings, which owns the Golden Triangle build out, which is over on at the end of Mud Mills. Those guys are talking about how to develop that space. I came to the table, said, absolutely, the town wants to be involved. Absolutely, we want to retain the character of the fairgrounds in some respects, and we want to discuss what that means. So we're now working with them and the county and the state and the federal government to talk about using brownfield development funding to offset the development of that space so that it can be something really awesome, like a large campus of mixed use housing and commercial
Wow.
development that would all be pedestrian oriented, so that it would all culminate in an open space area where the fairgrounds is. So that it called the fairgrounds, so that there would be this open big space so that we could still do open air presentations and have people dial into that same kind of living quality that exists a little bit further up the hill on Wisner Avenue, as you head towards Middletown. Um, these are all within our grasp. It just takes a large picture thinker to come to the table and talk with the developers. And I will tell you, all the parties at the table seem very interested and eager to push that conversation along. That's different than even 12 months ago, where it was completely stalled. Nobody knew what was going on, and people were concerned it was going to be warehouse space because that's easy and
Yes.
simple to build.
Yeah,
So
I heard that
there's
too.
some really good stuff. There's some good stuff there. There's some good stuff too with the relationships. Like I said, mentioned Crow Holdings. They're at Golden Triangle. The town has got an issue with the culvert there. We're partnering with Crow. They're going to help us. They're going to help us get over that so that they understand our financial situation. They're going to do what they can so that we don't have to foot a $2 million bill, and that perhaps maybe we don't have to, seriously concern about an emergency situation to repair a culvert because they have to dig up the road anyway to do water
Yeah.
tie-ins. So why would we not work out, a deal with them if they're willing to be at the table with us for that? And that's just good partnership, and that's just good stewardship. And I think that those are the kind of conversations that make me unique in this discussion about why I should be supervisor, and I'm happy to have those conversations because it's a weird superpower, but it's a superpower. So, um, you know, I'm happy to do that, and so that makes me feel really excited about the direction of the town because again, now we're thinking globally. We're thinking about what 40 years looks like instead of what 3 years looks like.
Yeah.
We're thinking about relationship building rather than putting up boundaries and deciding that we're going to be unflexible. Those things, in my experience, and I think in the town's experience, have failed. And so we want to move in a different direction. And so that's what I'm pushing, along with all the other stuff that we've been doing at.
Yeah.
So for someone who doesn't have any time at town hall, I've
Yeah,
been,
yeah, it sounds like you're doing a lot. It's a
I got all kinds of time. What are you talking about? Yeah, we're doing a lot, and I'm kind of really excited about how much we're doing because, again, I feel like what that is it's understanding the role and it's understanding where you can actually execute your abilities and how to execute those executive abilities in a way that's really constructive and positive rather than get in the mire, micromanage, or not have any vision at all. And I think that that's really the reality is you got to bring vision to the table, and that means good leadership, and good leadership is good stewardship, and I think I've demonstrated that, so I'm eager to get that word out.
yes. Well, quality over quantity. If you're there 8 hours
Yeah,
a day,
yeah,
you're
for
not
sure.
getting anything done and losing a bond rating, what's the point? So it's the
Yeah,
quality of the work that's getting done. It sounds like you've been, quite busy, quite busy. So again, uh, thank you so much for joining us here. Folks, you should definitely join Frank on April 12th. You said you think that's going to be an evening, right?
I believe that's in the evening. Yes, so it's I
Yeah,
think
okay.
6:30 or 7 o'clock.
Okay, that usually gets posted on the sign also.
Absolutely. There'll be a big blast about it. Be on the front sign at the town, and then of course, if you even have a question, just call the supervisor's office. We're happy to tell you. Call me. I'm happy to tell you.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm eminently reachable in all electronic forms. I'm eminently reachable in person with just about 30 minutes worth of heads up. So there
Yes,
you have it.
and soon having a YouTube presence now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'll be really famous.
that's you know what?
I'll be
It is become the main way that, people in office can maintain a relationship with their constituents on a more broad-based way. Either doing, just getting a message out there once a week or even a live chat for an hour and taking
I
questions
agree.
live. I
I
I think
agree. I'm going to tell you, I've seen some really good, successful politicians. There's a gentleman who is the current Attorney General for North Carolina who was a congressman for a little bit of time. He started out with a TikTok channel that he was using, just an informative discussion, and I was so inspired by that, and look to have a similar presence as well, just to sort of speak what the reality is, what my personal reality is, rather than the conjecture, because so much of this becomes noise really quickly.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I'm going to be present on YouTube. I was going to use a Three Amigos quote. I don't know. It might be dating myself here with your audience. I'm hopeful that maybe some of your audience might remember the Three Amigos.
I
But it's better to be infamous than famous because you're
yeah,
infamous.
yeah, yeah.
El Guapo was infamous. So yeah, um, I think that that's going to be really good in terms of outreach and of course just another way for you know you and everyone else to sort of hear what's going on.
And once that comes about, you'll let us know so we can connect with you here on Town Talk.
I sure will.
And and
I sure will.
very good. Once again, thanks so much for joining us. This is Frank DenDanto, supervisor of the Town of Wallkill. Definitely reach out to him on socials or directly with the town. And thanks so much for watching us. Remember to like,
My
share, and subscribe. and
my pleasure.
and
Thanks,
yes,
Denise.
thanks so much, Frank. We'll see you soon. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps to support the work we're doing and helps others find the show. We'd also love to hear from you, so please remember to leave us a comment and let us know what you think. And just a reminder, every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern is our live stream where you can join us, interact, and share your thoughts in real time. Lastly, we truly appreciate this growing community and look forward to bringing you more content in the future. Thanks so much for watching.